Does anybody want average employees? I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand on this, but I'll bet you I know a lot of people who do have average employees. Why? I can't afford anything else. I can't attract anything else. I can't find anything else, and they settle for average. So what you need to do is you have to build yourself. The first building block to a Cirque du Soleil team is you have to build yourself a culture by design, not default. When I got to Miller Ingenuity, I had a culture by default. The people in the factory hated each other. The office people had their own special little cafeteria. Factory people weren't allowed in it. They had no cafeteria. They had to take their breaks at their workstations. The language that they used with each other would make a sailor blush. Or as John McKay said the other day, even a sailor wouldn't be proud of that. And that was the kind of culture I had. I had a culture by default. And you may have, I'm guessing you have a culture by default. Companies tend to end up getting cultures by default. And you don't want that. You need to design your culture. Why don't people do that more often? I know it's fashionable to talk about culture. Us CEOs, we talk about culture and macroeconomics. Right, Jack? That's what we talk about. It's fashionable to talk about culture. Most people don't do it because they think it's really harder than it is. Anyone ever take on a culture change? It doesn't surprise me, because most companies, most CEOs, that's the last thing they think about is the culture. It's the very last thing. But the culture is what the culture is. But you can't just let it be by default. You have to design a culture of your own choosing. I'll give you a couple of ideas, a couple of quick examples of how strong our culture is. Twice since I've been there, one of our employees lost everything in a disaster. One was a flood, and recently it was a fire. And it was right about the time we were having the all-employee company golf outing. Some people have picnics or whatever. Our employees came up to us in both cases and said, would you be willing to take the money and give it to our brother, give it to our coworker, give it to our teammate, and we'd say we'd be happy not to have that golf outing. I mean, here, now some of these are factory people. You got beer, you got brats, you got golf, you got the day off with pay, and they chose to come to us and say, we want to help our friend out and our neighbor.